Bruh, I just had, greetings to all, I just had one of the most deep and profound, like, self-realization. Like, I'm 35. It's like a confession. I'm Terrence and I'm 35. I never knew what a fucking platonic relationship was, whether that's friendship and so forth. And I'm still learning more, because when I realized that my belief system that was passed on to me, or through my lens as a child, what I've learned unconsciously, that was deep embedded in my subconscious programming, I never knew at a time how to even build a platonic relationship, healthy relationship, not only with myself, but with women. I was sitting here telling myself, like, well, maybe sometimes that relationship, that person that you're wanting to connect with, maybe it's just supposed to be friendships. Maybe it's just supposed to be some type of, you may have a deep emotional connection, but nothing after that. It doesn't have to be sexual or romanticized. I was like, bro, I'm reading this. Now I'm gonna do another video, because I like to have like the what I'm researching kind of in front of me sometimes, if I haven't really got a lot of knowledge of it, because I'm not perfect in this. But when I just read that shit, I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking about generations that never taught us. And this goes back, I was telling my bro, like, the vetting process. I don't even, platonic? What is platonic? Platonic? And then I'm coming to the self-realization, like, I naturally had this with, some women that I grew up with. And this also can be with men as well, like, because, that's no judgment on people's sexual preference. But it ain't even just sexual. It was also talking about bromance or woman-mance. I don't know. But anywho, that's something I have to read more on to. But, bro, I'm like, I never knew the depths of platonic connections or relationships. And the reason why this is so vital is because I don't think a lot of us men know the importance of when you're going into something, and if that woman is secure within herself and she's not looking for anything romantic or even sexual, that's very important, something we should know as men. Even with myself, like, there were times where, again, and I'm not going to beat myself up or feel guilty, I just didn't know this shit. I literally finna be 36, 6:13 a.m. on Friday. And I am 35, letting y'all know that I never knew what it was to really have. I've had it, but let's just say I didn't know how to sustain it. Because in the back of my mind, or in my head, I felt like I had in some way, and it was no one's fault, it's just what I grew up in, to feel like women naturally, the belief system was they had to naturally be, some may say it like, I can see why they would see men as being like predators in a way, like, or just hungry for trying to just feed their sexual appetite. And that's true to that, because we're ruled by, Mars, or just saying sex. But at that point, it's still a balance between where a man comes into his awareness of being sensual and not sexual. And then I've learned that being sensual, or learning more because of healing my sexual wounds and childhood experiences and so forth, that I'm now consistently, even still having my own battle between learning that I don't have to no longer view women through that wounded lens sexually, or being overactive sexually because of what I experienced. And then that opening and exposing me to feeling like I have to how could I say this? Like that exposure sexually when I was touched on, and just when I was realizing that, like, that led me into relationships where I was being used by women. And so you're talking about creating belief systems, even with music, even with the culture dynamic, demographically speaking, where you have a hyper or overactive society sexually because of what they experienced, probably something traumatically in childhood, or even the fact of, like, we're not being aware or taught to even build things with people without leading with sex, without leading with, our genitalias. And I'm saying this because naturally, well, I'm a Scorpio, but whether that be in Western or even in Vedic astrology, I'm a Libra, but the Scorpio energy is ruled by that genitalial area. And I can honestly attest to how that overactiveness sexually led me to dynamics where I was so confused about my sexuality. I was so, at times, like, I was so misleading or misguided to lead with that. And I have no shame and guilt to even say, like, can I say my children were created out of love? Yes. But can I also attest to the fact of children can be created from places where we haven't met ourselves deep when it comes to trauma or healing? Yes. Because when you look at transgenerational trauma, intergenerational trauma, there are still things unseen that still get passed to kids, whether we feel like we accept it or not. No, there are still things, patterns, or certain things that we aren't aware of that still they inherit. And that's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And the reason I say this is because a lot of us don't realize that some of the connections that we have got in or connected with, or people, has a lot to do with or can be rooted in repressed or suppressed sexual traumas, and more so seeing through a lens of belief systems from societal norms, people and places being influenced by peer pressure, being influenced to give up what's sacred, expose ourselves to people who, knowing now more deeply, who don't know much about themselves, who haven't met themselves as deep as you are. And again, like, not knowing the importance of vetting, not knowing the importance of, again, I'm at 35 just now knowing the importance of learning to build things with women and people. Then that's because I learned myself more deeply with my traumas or wounds, and learning to build things from a not just platonic but business perspective. Hey, I'm on the phone, dude. But building now something authentic. Because the reason I say that, because it can be very misleading when there's not a balance. When you just leading with sex, how can you not expect to get the same result? Like, that's not going to sustain a relationship. There is a consequence to that, or there is a reaction, or what you put out, you get back. So me saying that is like, I wasn't taught young, just like a lot of these young men, where they come into they become more conscious of their lower nature or sexuality and stuff, and they're not educated. They're just taught little bits and pieces, but they don't really get told the consequences of you can have a baby, or the importance of them building and vetting, little girls when they're young, instead of just looking at them from a lens of something sexual, or just like a piece of meat. And that goes both ways too. So that being said, it's like, I'm gonna dive a little more deeper into this because, like I said, that's just like one of my confessions in this Scorpio season. Because, yeah, man, like, I'm just now learning. That's why I keep telling y'all, no one is ahead of nobody. I'm just now learning shit that I feel like I should have known 20, 30 years ago. But again, that's the process and the beauty of being authentic and going through things with integrity. So I'll bring a part two. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.